And that confidence only comes from the competence that knows I'm a creative being. I'm the only species on the face of the planet that can come up with an idea with my mind and apply it to my life and create magic.
Welcome to the Small Business Podcast series, where every week we are interviewing guests that support the small business community. We have a very special guest on today, one that has years and years of experience and comes from owning and running his own business, but moving into executive coaching. And he founded Evolve Leadership and is an executive coach at Evolve Leadership. Welcome, Angus Nelson, to the podcast. Angus, welcome to the show. We'd be so excited to hear your story today.
Oh, well, thanks, Jason. I'm excited to be here with you. Dive into all this good stuff.
Angus, let's just dive right in. Like, you've had a business in the past and you became a
Mm.
coach. I'm in the same boat. Share for the listeners here what inspired you to decide to move into executive coaching from having and running a business?
Okay, so I'll try to make this as tight as possible because there's two reasons. One is because I failed miserably, and two, because of discoveries I made working in an innovation association that I've founded. My first business, I was probably 28 years old. It was a nonprofit organization fronted as a coffee house, and we did music festivals. And one of those festivals, our very first one, I needed 4,500 people to show up. We had thunder showers, only 1,400 showed up. I lost $72,000 that weekend. And for our little organization, that was a ton of cash. And I did what a lot of us do. I put all the weight on my own shoulders to pull that thing out from, its devastation. I didn't ask for help. I didn't delegate. I didn't go to my board. I didn't know that there were other resources. All I did was put my head down and work harder. And at the time, my wife and I moved into my parents' basement. We were working, I was doing probably 80, 90-hour work weeks. My wife grew to despise me. We were fighting. She told me just to quit, go, get a real job, quote unquote. And then it turned into my pride and my ego. I was going to prove to her, I was going to prove to the community that I could turn this ship around. And I started drinking, and then I started sleeping around. And in short order, I blew up the business, I blew up my marriage, and I blew up my sense of self. We got divorced on December 23rd, 2003. And 2 days later, I was sitting underneath my Christmas tree weeping, contemplating how I was going to take my life. And I heard this voice, and it said, "We're not done here yet." And that prompted me that very next week to get counseling. So I started learning about human behavior and psychology and all these things I had never heard before. And that was when my eyes started to be opened that I had made all these mistakes out of my own selfishness, out of my own pride, out of my own ego. Flash forward a decade, and I started another business with a friend of mine. It was an innovation association for Fortune 500 brands. We were tracking all of the progress of peer-to-peer businesses like Airbnb, Uber, TaskRabbit, things of that nature. And all the brands that were a part of our association were like everything from Wells Fargo to BMW, Coca-Cola, Ford Motor Companies, Disney, like massive brands. We had 74 of them. I'm drinking from a fire hose learning the space because I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't know a lot about working in corporate. So a lot of it for me was also experiencing my own imposter syndrome and fears and whatnot. But every night I would just put my head down again and I would start researching that space and learning all about it until I got very proficient at it. So here I was, the people person, putting together all the content, all the webinars, and working with all the clients. And I would be on calls, and inevitably, the calls would move from innovation, digital transformation to my life sucks right now. Every time I come up with a new idea, I'm challenging an entire organization within our company. And being in innovation for a lot of these leaders also came with it a lot of pressure. Until one day, one of them said to me, "Angus, you'd make a great coach." And I was like, "I don't even know what that means." And I started researching to learn about what that was. And I realized I was seeing patterns in these people's lives that I had gone to all those years ago. Patterns that I had in my thinking, patterns in the way that I was behaving, patterns in the way that I was filtering the world. And I realized, dang it, I can do this. And that was in 2016. I took my first client and I've been coaching ever since.
Well, it's 2024. We're 8 years into this coaching journey that you have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And I can, as I was listening to that story, hearing so much of that, of the things that a lot of the people listening might be going through right now. And I know that's
Mm.
one of the biggest reasons you jumped into coaching and diving in. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the um different elements that you work through, especially when it comes down to just achieving the next thing is not going to give you confidence. I know I've struggled with that, and
Mm-hmm.
high
Yep.
achievers will struggle with that. You're always after the next thing, the next thing, the next
Yep.
thing. But at the end of the day,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
not actually what fills the tank, even though that's what the society says it does.
Yeah. The whole premise of confidence is, in my philosophy, confidence only lives in the past. It's impossible for confidence to live in the future. So when we are looking at starting something new, doing something new, launching a new product, a new service, or whatever, we oftentimes tell ourselves like, man, if I was just more confident, if I just had the confidence, I would, fill in the blank, step into this and go to that, or, try for this. And what I've learned is that the confidence we're actually looking for is not about the task or the activity. It's not the thing future forward. The confidence we're actually looking for is the thing that's present here and now. Confidence in me. And that's the thing where people fall down, is because they have a track record of all their past that especially if you're a high performer, you neglect to measure your wins. So you don't track like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. Or number two, we're really good at tracking our screw ups. We're really good at remembering where we failed. And we'll stack the deck full of our failures in our own mindset and believe about ourselves stories that we made up about how I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, I don't have what it takes, I'm not like this person, I'm not like that person. And all the different things that build within ourselves this pressure to perform that nobody else is expecting of us but us. And with these high expectations we have of ourselves, we also have this high critique of ourselves. And so it becomes a self sabotaging mechanism, and it keeps us in these plateaus at every level of our business growth. Because every time we get to a certain level, we'll do something that will tick us back to the level we came from. So if we were trying to get more income for a season, we're like, yeah, I'm crushing it. And then like the very next month or just a couple months later, we're back to the averages we had before. And we're like, why? Why can't I maintain that? And it's because you don't have the identity that maintains it. You still see yourself as what you saw yourself to be prior. Maybe you want more headcount. Yeah, if we just had more people, and then you get more people, but then all of a sudden people start quitting. People start taking other roles. And you're like, what happened? We were just getting all the perfect people in place. Again, there's this identity. And so much of our business, we want it to grow, but it cannot grow until we grow first. And that confidence only comes from the competence that knows I'm a creative being. I'm the only species on the face of the planet that can come up with an idea with my mind and apply it to my life and create magic. And as we've used our creative process for all the negative, all the stories, all the critique that we've done upon ourselves, we can reverse that by using that creative force to speak to our possibility, to speak to our power, to speak to our incredible inert ability to have resilience, transcendence, and transformation. And all we have to do is give ourselves permission to step into it.
Angus, that is very powerful. How, in talking through this and as I'm listening to you give this, this information that comes out, one of the things that pops into my head is, but how do I do it like that? That drive an innate thing that we go for, which is
Mm,
instant gratification, right?
yeah.
How do I know this is going to work if I'm going to put in the effort and put in the
Hmm.
time? Because it's it this is a slow process. We've been
Yeah.
through it each of ourselves. It is a good process, but
Mm.
what could you instill in somebody that is like, oh man, how am I going to be, how do I know that doing this for the next 3, 5, 10 years is actually going to get me the results?
Well, even the way you frame that is how so many of us think, and that in itself is its own story. We build an expectation that says it should take this long. And what if you just removed any kind of expectation of performance and didn't tie the act that you're going to do to the performance, to the outcome, and instead tie it to a natural expression of your power and expansion? And I am the kind of person who does these kinds of things. And I may not see it tomorrow, and I may not see it next month. I may not see it next year, but I know who I am and I know the things that I do. And I'm going to stay to this to make this happen. And you create a standard about yourself that has raised an expectation of yourself that has been raised to now you perform at these higher levels, and it becomes a natural, organic expression of who you are. Because if we do it according to, I've got to get to this certain goal, we go into this performance mindset and we'll start exerting ourselves and striving and competing with our own energy levels. And we actually create more friction because from that, it's all based in scarcity. I'm not good enough because I haven't arrived. I'm not who I think I am because I'm not there yet. Versus I'm already there and projecting myself in my imagination to have already achieved it. And now I'm going to grab it from the future and I'm going to pull it into today. And I'm going to see what I'd see and I'm going to feel what I'd feel and I'm going to be who I'd be today. Because you can't control tomorrow. You can't control the future. The only thing you can control today, you can't control the past. You can't affect the past. You can't change the past. You can only change today. And so, why not, instead of waiting for something where you think that you'll be approved, where you think you'll be validated, where you think you might please somebody, screw all that and make it about yourself. I'm going to validate myself. I'm going to please myself, and I'm going to sow into myself today with the full knowledge that this is who I am. My identity is in being a successful entrepreneur, regardless of the outcome. And then the outcome happens anyway.
That is such a powerful statement. Understand, listeners out there, that reframing, that perspective of it. If you've ever opened your laptop ready to grow your business and 2 hours later closed it, realizing you've gotten nothing done, but you've researched office chairs, you've ordered lunch, and you've planned out the next 3 dinners, all the things that you wouldn't typically do to work on your business. Yeah, I've done that too. I'm Jason Pond. I'm the host of the Small Business Breakthrough Podcast, and I want you to achieve your breakthrough. But we do that through the community I built. I built the Momentum Community. The Momentum Community is a place where we meet every week. We talk about your goals, where you want to get with your business, and then we track them. And we use the Momentum dashboard to do that. We make sure you're moving forward every week, and it's accountability like you've never seen in a community forum. I want you to be part of that community. If you want to learn more about it, check out the link in the description below and enjoy the rest of the episode. Now, Angus, I'm a big guy of self-development. It's one of the pillars that I teach in my coaching program. It's what I call the mysterious 5th pillar of business. You have
Yeah.
to be able to be willing to work on yourself and go. And my understand, I love to read. I got all these
Yeah.
books behind me and I've read
Yeah.
90% of them. The ones that I
Yeah.
haven't read are mostly manuals, which they're boring, so don't read them.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand you have a book
Yeah.
that's coming out, and when this podcast airs, it may actually be available or definitely have a release date. But tell us a little bit about your book and how our
Yeah.
listeners can benefit from that book.
Well, it's closely related to what we're talking to right now. The name of the book is Confidence Comes Later, because confidence, as we stated, only exists in the past. And then the subtitle is How Our Quest for Certainty is Actually Holding Us Back. Because ultimately, that's what we're looking for, right? The question you asked me is like, well, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, we just want certainty. Like, I just want to know that if I put my step forward, I'm going to arrive at the destination I've set in front of myself. And the reality is, nobody promises you even tomorrow, let alone the desire that's in your heart. We look at the world, and the world is full of everything from climate to politics to economies. All the fundamentals of life are in question right now. There is no certainty, it's all in flux. And then we look at people's behaviors and their emotions and their opinions of self. And we've never been in a season in history where we've had so much abundance and yet so many people medicated, miserable, depressed, sad. We have people who are binge watching all the Netflix and Hulu and Apple and all the like things. There's so much entertainment, so much sports, so many other things that basically keep so many people just simply distracted and numb because we're in these sad states. People play these roles of living by default or being a victim or being in some form invalid, dismissed, not worthy. And these are all things that we can do something about. As an individual, we can choose to rise above. And this book speaks to your power and possibility. That the only reason why you're not doing the thing that's crying out in your soul, that your intuition is calling you to, that your heart beats for, is simply because you haven't given yourself permission to become. We're waiting on an excuse, and the excuse we tell ourselves is that we are not confident. And the reality is, the more you can believe in yourself, the more confident you are in yourself, the more fearless and powerful you become. You enter a state I call the nothingness. Nothing to prove, nothing to lose, nothing to gain. And in the nothing is everything. That's the liberation. And then you can go and make magic happen in the world. But right now, people are too scared, too afraid of themselves and their own power. And this book is created to set people free, to take their power back.
Well, listeners, reach out, get the book. We'll have a link if it's available. We'll have a link in the show notes for sure to be able to access the book. There's no affiliate with it. It's just a matter of supporting Angus in the process. That's how we do it on the Small Business Breakthrough podcast. Is we support small business owners just like those of our guests do inside of this. Angus, it has been a great conversation, a very powerful one at that. There was definite emotion in myself coming up, and I'm hoping that my listeners got some of that impact also through this conversation. You ready to jump into a little bit of our lightning round to wrap this up?
Let it ride. Yeah, let's do it.
They're not hard questions, but they are questions nonetheless. Coffee or tea?
Oh gosh, 90% of the time it's coffee.
Yeah, there you go. Myself, I love coffee. Now, I think I know the answer to this one just because I did a little bit of research before the podcast, but cats or dogs?
Dog, no hesitation.
And you have a couple of big dogs, I understand.
Yeah, big, burly. One's a dumbass and one's adorable. Well, they're both adorable, just one's smarter than the other. Yeah.
I could probably guess the breed, but we won't go down that path today. If you could grab only one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
Oh gosh. One a two-handed sword.
Two-handed sword.
I just went back to my Dungeon and Dragon days.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a good one there. I always played the barbarian of sorts in the that's was my favorite type of character.
Nice. Yeah.
Probably because I was scrawny and small when I was getting a little bit more fit now with our new program that we're in.
Nice.
Um, Favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Um, Favorite quote. Actually, it's right here. So my dad was a pastor, and there's this scripture, and it's in a different context, but it says this. It says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with it, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it." And the quote that it says, "Learn the unforced rhythms of grace, and I'll show you that it is not heavy, but it is light."
Wow.
And learn the unforced rhythms of grace. That's the thing that always comes to me.
Yeah, that's powerful. What's one book that has influenced your life the most?
One book. Well, right now, actually, I'd say the book that's impacted me the most is 10x is easier than 2x.
Great book. Great book. It's
Mm-hmm.
I have the digital copy. I don't think it's behind me on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read that one on Kindle. The Kindle is stealing from my library of choice here. I'm losing ground by going
Mine's
digital.
Audible and Spotify. Now,
Yeah.
the Spotify paid, you can actually get audiobooks.
Wow. I'll have to look into it on that one.
Mm-hmm.
You you kind of covered this question early on in your story, I think, but maybe you have a different one. We'll find out. What's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome and one lesson you've learned from it?
Um, the biggest lesson I've learned, I would say, is not to feed off of other people's opinion of you. I get super excited about somebody giving me a compliment. I think, "Oh my God, I'm amazing." And then I just become a dick for the next, 3 days. I just think my poop doesn't stink, type stuff. And I've had to dial back my ego, and life, the universe has a really fun sense of humor that it just beat it out of me, to where I've been hit so many times that I no longer have that same response. And it's only increased in me a level of empathy and compassion and softness, that even when someone compliments me, I see it as a reflection of the impact I have on people's lives. And that's my gift to give to the world. So I'd rather operate in meaning and contribution than trying to feel good about myself because I think I'm somebody special.
Wow. Wow. That's very, very, very powerful and important for everybody listening out there to understand. Angus, how can our listeners collaborate with you if they want to learn more about you or work with
Mm-hmm.
you?
Come and find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Angus Nelson on almost all the things. You can find my content on YouTube and Instagram and all the things. But if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn's always the best.
You heard it here, everybody. LinkedIn is the best way to contact Angus Nelson. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show today, Angus. And we will have all of that information in the show notes, including a link to the book when it's available
Mm.
and the description on YouTube if you are watching this on YouTube. Thank you for listening, everybody. And until next time.